Good evening and welcome to our latest webinar in the series of Snowflake webinars. Tonight, Danielle Macklin will be presenting on It Takes a Village and an Ecosystem, talking about the different things that you would need in your classroom in order to teach effectively and use Snowflake in that ecosystem. I would like to welcome Danielle to the stage with me. Danielle.
Hello again. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
So I would like to take a second to say, Danielle, I would like to thank you for all of the webinars that you've done over the past few months. You've done a great job preparing, and
Thank you.
Chatting in the back, and then she goes and does all of this work to present in the webinar series that we're leading. But just so that everyone knows, this is our last webinar of this series, and we're going to take a break for the summer and hope that all of you teachers take a break also. You need one after this year. So we will be taking a break, and we will have emails going out to let you know when the webinars will be starting back up again. But I would like to seriously thank everyone that's been attending over the past few weeks, past few months as we've been doing the webinars. I hope that you find them interesting, and I hope that it's material that you can use and take back and improve your schools and your teaching with what we're talking about. I'm going to turn my face off of the camera, let Danielle take it away, and thanks everyone.
All right, so as Jack was saying, I'm going to be leading you through our last webinar of this series, taking a break before summer. And we are going to be spending a little bit of time tonight talking about how to curate your own digital resource library and how to use some of those resources when you return to school in the fall. So hopefully this will just give you some ideas of different ways you can use Snowflake and use some of these digital resources. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I have a few tabs that I'm opening, so you'll have to bear with me while it bounces back and forth a little bit. So I know you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. There we go. Okay, we'll get out of that. I'm going to start by sharing with you, and I will send this link to everyone at the end of the webinar. Each of these different examples of digital resources are all linked to a particular website, so it's just a way for you to keep organized some of the free resources that are available for educators. So we have our list of online textbooks. These are really great resources. OER Commons I really enjoy because it is more than just textbooks. It's also where you can go to find complete lesson plans, primary sources. Since I was a social studies teacher, that was really helpful for me. So lots of really great features from that. There's also a lot of really great online lit books. So Free Kids Book is one, so freekidsbook.org. And the great thing with this particular site, and many of the other sites as well, is all of these books you have the ability to download as a PDF. So if I went through and I found one, and I can search and do my filters by grade, I can search different subjects, ESL levels, really great if you're teaching students who are ESL, different types of books, categories. And those books have downloadable PDFs. So I'll just grab one real quick. Let me see, The Peacock Who Wished to Fly. I'm going to download that PDF. And I'll show you how you can use a PDF in sending lesson activities to students as well. Just do a quick download of that. So as I was saying, all of these links are linked to different digital media. Project Gutenberg is another one where everything is in the public domain. LibriVox is really good with audio recordings of public domain books. They also have a YouTube channel, so you can see different versions of, maybe if you're reading Alice in Wonderland, you can hear it read from different, not authors, but different readers. We also have a lot of simulations. So PhET is really great for science simulations. CK.12 has physics and chemistry simulations, and iCivics is a good resource for social studies, particularly related to civics and government. And we have some different graphics, video clips, and music that you can search as well. And then I've also included a link to just different sites that we've had webinars on these before, but just to have that as your backup for different pedagogy and training. We have a link to the Technology Integration Matrix, a link to Universal Design for Learning, and then also I've linked us to all of our online training videos. So as you're working through the summer, hopefully not too hard, but if you are working at all during the summer and you want to go back and see anything, you can access it through this link, as well as through our YouTube channel. We have all of the webinars recorded for you. So I'll send this out to everyone at the end, but this is one way you can help curate some of your digital resources. And I'm going to show you now an example of how I used that in creating something for a remote learning environment. I also wanted to show to you some of the new features that we have on the newest release of Snow.Live. So a couple of new things we've added in, starting with the list feature. So right now I'm in my lists, and we now have the ability, if I go to more, we have the ability to add audio recording. So the link I showed you with online books, you could add in an audio recording of that. So you can record in your audio, you can record up to a minute of audio. This would be really great if you're trying to record a short poem for the students to listen to, or even recording the directions of what you want students to complete for their task. That's a really great resource to have. Or you could pull in from your computer. So if you're bringing in maybe a short music clip, or you've already downloaded maybe a short audio of like a short story or an example of a literary device, you can add that in. So, and I'll just show you the record audio. It's the same as when you are recording on a lesson activity. So same layout, simply record, it'll count down your timer. So you can see it's giving me a minute to record. I can press stop when I am satisfied, and I can preview, which I won't do because it was just me explaining it. And then I can save that, and that audio recording would be part of my list. We also have the ability to add PDFs, which I've spoke about before, but we can also now edit our lists. So this is a little easier for users if you wanted to move pieces of your list around. So you would just simply use this little toggle here, move it around, put that back to the front. And I'm going to do just a quick play of this list and give you examples of where I got the information and show you some of the digital media that I used for it. So this would be, if I were in the classroom and I were using this with my students, this would be a lesson activity that I could send this list, the whole thing, to my students to complete. They would be able to complete it on their own device. It would be sent to my Snow.Live classes. So I could have students working on this in class or at home, or as part of a station activity, while I had students working on my interactive panel in multiple zones, or doing some other type of enrichment or instruction. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and play my list. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear this because I do have my headphones in.
Today is Wednesday, June 10th.
But that was just me reading the date if you couldn't hear it. So there was my audio recording that I added. I just wanted to keep it short for the webinar. And then my students would be able to navigate through. I attached to this a PDF, and this was a PDF from one of the digital education resources. This one was, I think, from OER Commons. So I pulled in a PDF about ancient Greece. I could also take any of the Google Docs that I've made, or Microsoft Docs, or really anything I can download as a PDF and add that in as well. My students would have the ability to increase the size, go through to the next page. So my task for my students, my recording would have been the task, telling them read the PDF and then go to the lesson activity. So in this lesson activity, my students would be completing a quiz based off of the PDF, answer the questions. correct one. So then they would go through, they could see which ones they answered correctly or incorrectly. And then the last activity, with this lesson activity, I set it up so that the directions, what I wrote in the description, would appear first. The directions are telling my students, spin the wheel to select a Greek god or goddess, then use the attached Google drawing to research and create a biography of that god or goddess, then complete the poll activity. So my students, as they would play, it would be spin the wheel, lands on one of the 12 gods or goddesses. So there we have Apollo. And then my student would use some digital resources that I've curated. So I have a Google drawing. Again, I've added in my directions. My students would be able to edit and fill this in, adding their own information. And then after finishing that, they could then join us on a poll. And we added a new feature to our polls. So I wanted to share that with everyone. I'm just going to copy this and put it into a new web browser. One of the new features that we've added into poll is the ability to annotate over an image. So for this one, I said after researching your Greek god or goddess, draw your version of how they look. Remember to include any special symbols or props. So then my students could, using these tools at the bottom, they would be able to draw over the particular character. With polls, they can do this on any device. It could be on their Chromebooks, it could be on their iPads, it could be on their cell phones. So anything that is web enabled, they'd be able to access. And then they could submit their answer. And then I'll show you from a teacher perspective what that would look like. So I went and did that. So my poll itself, we are June 10th poll. And I can see my student answered. Hopefully my students would have answered a little bit better. But I can keep this poll open. So until I hit stop, my students would be able to send in any of their poll answers. So if I wanted to keep it open for a period of 24 hours, I could keep it open for 24 hours. If I wanted to keep it open for a week, I could keep it open for a week. And then once I hit stop, nobody else would be able to join the poll. All of that information would now be in here. And that new feature I'm going to show is I had shown before our ability to add images, text with images, and then with our drawing feature, we now have the ability to choose the background. So you could even add for this, if you taught math, you could have a JPEG saved of a math problem, and your students could work out the problem and then submit their answer into the poll. So that would be for my question background. Oh, excuse me, my question background is this part. My draw background would be where I could pull it in, and I could browse from my computer, or I can do an online image search. Let me search for, oh gosh, I'll just do a math problem. We'll see what comes up with that. All right, so we can see just a multitude of math calculations. So maybe that would be the one I'd want to use. And then now my students would have that, and they would annotate over that and send it into the poll. Go back to done. So this would be really great if I were using it in that blended learning environment where I were doing a combination of remote learning or students working even independently on their own devices. And then also in my classroom, I could incorporate lesson activities from the community. So we did rename this. It was the Explore page. We're referring to it as our community now. And I could pull up, let's do Greek again. I could pull up lesson activities for my students to play on our interactive panel. So I think that's a good one, the Olympians. So if I were doing this at home planning or at school during like my prep period, I could find all of the things I needed, and then whatever I've created in my Snow.live account is also going to sync with my interactive panel. So I would simply need to make sure that I'm logged into my Snowflake account on my panel, and the materials that I've pulled from the community would sync, or I could just search from my Snowflake or from the Snowflake app on my panel and then find that material as well. I'd be able to open it in multiple zones. So I could have my students playing this activity. So this would be a scramble of the gods and goddesses. I could open this in 4 different zones. And in each of the zones, the words would all be in different locations. So they would have a whole different screen. So I could have multiple students participating, all working on something a little bit different. Or I could open that lesson activity with another lesson activity, maybe one about Greek and Latin roots. So even though I taught social studies, I could incorporate a little ELA into my activities. And my students would be able to play that as well. Or I could just simply send this to my students, and my students could complete that in their Snow.Live classes. So then I could see how my students did on those particular activities. So what we're hopefully trying to provide you with as you're kind of winding down for the school year and maybe thinking a little bit about what you want to do next year is ways to incorporate a lot of these digital resources on the Snow.Live platform. So adding things like PDFs or adding audio recordings or adding your videos to lesson activities and then using those as part of your lesson plan and instruction throughout your classroom. So I know I've given you a lot, as always. I'd like to take some time to open up for any questions that you might have about Snow.Live or different ideas of how you can incorporate it into your classroom. Or if there's anything that you'd like me to go over again from previous webinars, maybe anything about like the TIMS model or the Universal Design for Learning, or just anything that you're still wanting a little bit more information on. So I'll give everyone a second to marinate on that.
Thank you, Danielle. As always, thanks for good information.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions that have come in as of yet, so we'll wait just a couple of minutes and see if anything comes in. Nothing coming in. So I will make a reminder. If anything comes in while I'm speaking, then we'll go back to the question and allow Danielle to go forward. But at this point, I would like to once again take the opportunity to thank everyone that's joined us over the past few months. It's been great to have everyone part of our webinar series. I'm just reminding you that we are taking a break for the summer starting this week. This is our last one for the summer until the summer's over. We will, of course, be sending emails out to remind everyone when the series begins again in the fall. So if you have anything you want to hear about, email me and let me know. No questions came in, Danielle, so thank you so much for everything. Thank you, everyone. Hope you all have a wonderful summer. If there's anything you need in the meantime, drop me an email at jr@nuitec.com. Thanks. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.